Okay, today I'm going to talk about Zspheres. And so Zspheres is a way to kind of build an armature or a model out from scratch using Zbrush. And so in that intro tutorial that I showed, you can start off with Zbrush with the normal Sphere 3D. And you can, if you like, just draw that out, hold Shift and click it, and then press, there's 3 steps, so draw it out, click it. Step 2, press Edit. Step 3, press Make Polymesh 3D. And unless you do all 3 of those steps, it kind of won't work. And then but you can work with it this way. And so what you might prefer to do is under your brush, use the Move tool right here. You can kind of pull out, you know, especially if you turn on, let's say, Transform and activate Symmetry. So at the top, if you go to Transform, activate Symmetry, and along the x-axis is good. You can kind of pull this out and using that together with the Smooth tool, start to build out a character, particularly if all you have is a head here. And work this way. Again, kind of smoothing after each step to kind of smooth this out. And start sculpting on a head or a model this way. You can also kind of pull out and start to kind of get some arms and things like that. Typically, this isn't the way I personally work, but you can definitely get a lot done this way. And so what I prefer to do when I start out a document, and I'm going to or start a new project, and again, this document window right here, whenever I go to document, it's only kind of clearing this canvas space. So the document is only has to do with the canvas space. It's not saving or really discarding your model. See, my model is still showing up here in the tool menu if I go to new document. So the model's still there. It's just a new canvas that we're working on when I go up to document and the new document. So that's just one way to kind of start fresh. So Zsphere. It's under the same menu here. You can see it right there. Also in the top left under the tool menu, if you press that, you'll always get like this menu here with all these different options here for how you want to start out your model. And you'll see here that the model that I just kind of had worked with is kind of up there. But Zsphere is an option here. And so Zsphere, it's a funky little system, but it's really straightforward and simple when you get used to it. And there's not a lot to it. So you start with Zsphere, and then I'll just click in the center, and then, sorry, my cursor is being a little funky here. Zbrush heard me say there wasn't much to it, and then it had to rebel. Let's see here. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I'm trying to get it to lock into place, but my shift button's not working. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I like to hold shifts just so that things come in flat, so that that ball isn't at an angle or anything like that. So you just drag it in, hold shift, and hopefully it'll kind of go easier for you than it just did for me where I had to fight it a little bit. And then just press this edit button, same as you would with the polysphere, or the sphere 3D, I should say. And from here, I'm moving around the camera and zooming in and out. And so right now I'm not scaling up the object, I'm moving kind of like the camera around. And so again, if you click out here, you'll rotate. You'll see this box over here. It's also an indicator. Option and click, you pan. And then Command and click on a Mac, you zoom in and out. If I just right click with Command clicked and zoomed out there. And so when I'm starting a model here, the first thing I do is I make sure Symmetry is on. So I go to Transform up here and activate Symmetry. The shortcut for this is X. So we have Symmetry here, and if you press X, it'll go away, and X again, and it'll come back. You can, again, create symmetry across the x-axis, or the y or the z-axis, just depending on what you want. So you can even turn them all on at the same time and get a bunch of points at the same time. But again, all we need is the x right now. And the way that this works is really straightforward. So we have the draw button right here, and we have the move and the scale. And that's all we're going to use is the draw, move, and scale. And you can just click on these for whichever mode you want to use. The other thing that's of note is when I'm moving my camera around, I like to hold down shift and just lock into the side view or the front view. So 90% of the time when I'm sculpting and or building out my armature, as I like to say, using Zspheres, I'm holding down shift and just clicking my camera into the orthographic view, as it were. So to start my armature, if I navigate to the top here, since I have symmetry on, I can draw right here. And again, I'm just dragging left to right. And you'll see these two Z-spheres connect. And if you look here, you can see there's an armature connecting this sphere with these ones. And so what that means is that the things that we can control right now are the spheres. And so I just draw them on, and you can, how long I drag from left to right determines how large these are. So you can make them really small if you like. And then just let go when you're done. And then if I want to move these out, kind of pull the armature out, I'll press move right here. And you can pull it out. And you see how I held shift or press shift while I toggle my camera. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between the front and the side view here when I use it. And so that's the move tool. So you can kind of move these armatures out. And then finally you have the scale tool, where if you drag up, it'll scale down. And then if you drag down, it'll scale up and get larger. And the last thing to kind of show in terms of the information you need in order to kind of do this other than practicing is A as an apple is the shortcut you need to remember for the Z-spheres. So A is an apple. So if I press A, it'll give me a preview of what the geometry looks like here. And then press A again, and it goes back to the Z-spheres. And the reason that I don't work in this mode all the time is that I might want to add more Z-spheres, scale them up, you know, do all that stuff. So I'll press A, get back out of it. I'm going to edit undo to kind of move back a little bit. And so that's most of what you need to know right there. The shortcuts for draw, move, and scale are Q, W, and E, similar to what you might find in Maya for the shortcuts. So Q, W, and E. And one thing that I didn't show here is that with symmetry on, if I bring it so that the green circles become 1 point, now when I draw a Z-sphere, and again I'm just clicking and then dragging from left to right using my tablet, it'll create 1 point, this going right down the middle there. And so from here, I'll just move it up, check from the side view, that looks okay. And so keep in mind with Z-spheres, and that's kind of what it looks like right now until I build out some more armature, I just pressed A there, is we can control this sphere and this sphere by scaling them and moving them around. And again, I'm dragging up and down to scale. And I can do that for that one too. You can't really control this middle area. You can only control the spheres here of your armature. But you can, if you've drawn 2 points here and you want to make another one here, you can, let's just say that this is like a stylized little fun character I'm going to make here. And I decided I wanted this to be the head and these to be the arms coming out here. I can press the draw button again, and you don't have to draw a point out like that. You can also draw a point on this armature. And so I just wait for it to turn green. You see that? How right here it'll draw on the sphere, but if I drag it to where it's green and then the armature turns green, which is the armature being this little arrow that's pointing up right there, we added a third sphere in the middle. And so from here, I can keep drawing. So draw is how you just add new points. And so I'm making some little shoulders here. You can kind of shape using the move tool, kind of shape your character. And I'll keep drawing this out. So I just press the draw tool left or right. Now I'm doing the move tool and pulling them out. So one thing of note here is, you remember the space bar is my shortcut I use all the time, and the draw size is the only shortcut that really matters to you in the space bar for this. Is if I want, you see how this sphere right here is really close to this sphere right here? So when I use the move tool, if I have my draw size small, it'll only move, it'll kind of do it correctly. It's only moving that one point around. But if you set your draw size to be large, it'll grab anything that's within that radius when you do the move tool. You see how it grabbed the shoulder there? And so if it's grabbing more Zspheres than you want, just make your draw size small by doing the space bar and this top slider. Just make the draw size small there. And you can kind of pull out the areas here. So these will be the elbows of the character. I'll press A here just to kind of get a preview. Then I'll go back to draw again. You can press Q or press this button right up here at the top. Just for this demonstration, I'll try not to do the shortcuts, and I'll try to click the buttons just to kind of make it clear what I'm doing at any point. And again, I'm holding Shift while I rotate just to snap it to orthographic views here. And I'm going to draw out the forearm. I'm going to keep them a little stocky. You can reposition the character as you're going, and then press A just to kind of get your previews of how this is progressing. Drawing out hands gets a little trickier. It's not too bad. So I'm going to give them kind of chubby little hands here. So that's the kind of hand, the wrist, and then the end of the hand right there. Oops. Okay, well, Zbrush just crashed. That's fun. You can see the progress that was happening there, though. So this is a good reminder. I'm not going to cut that out of the session because I just want you to see how much Zbrush crashes. It's fun, you know. And let's see here. So I kind of have a custom interface up, so I'm just going to restore the standard. And these are some of my past models showing up there. Okay, so Zsphere, going to click that, draw it out, hold Shift to draw out the point, press Edit. So I'm just going to start over on this. And so draw it out. This is only going to take a second. And I'm going to scale it a little bit. Make sure that Symmetry is on. And again, I'm holding Shift to kind of toggle between the front and the side view. If you notice here, I'm almost never working in in a 3/4 view like that. You know, I'm almost always just in the front or the side view here. So I'll do the same thing where I'll draw out his torso this way. This can be a very quick way to build out an armature here. So again, I kept my draw size kind of small here. Press A to preview how this is progressing. And what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm just going to go to File, Save As at the top here to save my work. I'm just going to save this on my desktop. I'll try to remember to save as I go along here. So now I'm going to draw out the forearm. See, I'm continuing to snap from the orthographic views, as it were. And again, so I'm just doing the draw, move, scale tool. Those are the only three options. So whenever I'm making a new sphere to add to the armature, I'm doing draw, dragging left to right. Then the next step, I'll move it. Just kind of move it in position here. The draw size of your brush matters here in terms of what it grabs when you move. Because again, if my draw size is really big, it's going to grab anything within that range, right? Which can be helpful, you know, so sometimes you want that. And then the A button gives us a preview of how this is going. And I always think of this exactly like an armature here. So we're going to build up mass on top of this as we sculpt. And so we don't need this to be some perfect thing, but we're just trying to build out the base shape that we're going to go for here. Oops. It's going to be a stylized character, so I'm going to give him 3 fingers. Oops. And a thumb. And since Symmetry is on, this should be drawing on the other side as I'm working. I'm just going to rely on that being the case, hopefully. I remembered. So again, I'm just drawing and then moving, drawing and then moving, and sometimes scaling if that's needed. So I had the knuckle there, and now I'm building out to the middle knuckle. Just drawing and moving. And always just look at it from 2 views as I'm moving here. So I'm looking at it from the front and the side, holding shift to lock it to each position. And now I'm going to bring it out to the tip of the finger. So I just drew it out, I drawed it out, and then from there, I'll do move. And this one I made a little too small. So I'm just going to drag downwards on each sphere here. And remember, you can only control the sphere. So this little middle area, for instance, I can't manipulate, but I can manipulate the sphere on either end of it, or I can add another sphere within it if I want that added control here. So I'm just selecting a sphere I want to scale up, and you can see you can scale it up or down. And just changing the scale here. And I'm going to draw out the tip of the pinky finger right here. So you see I got a little hand here. It looks like he's in a Western about to draw here. Yeah, it's if this seems complicated to you, that means you're probably overthinking it a little bit. You know, it's just you're drawing new spheres out. This little area in between is these armature areas connecting the spheres, and you can't really manipulate those, but you can just kind of keep drawing to add new spheres. And with each sphere, you can move it around once you draw it, and you can scale it. And the rotate button's right there, but I'm not even, you'll notice I didn't even mention it because it doesn't matter. It's, I never used the rotate tool here. So I'm going to draw his legs out now. So I'll just draw it here. Oops. And from there, I'll need to move. I'm going to give them really little legs here. So this will be the, what do you call it, the quad area. So I just scaled them up by dragging down. Just moving in like this. I'm going to draw again to draw the area between the knees and the ankles. Oops. And I'm just edit undo. I'm pretty quick on the edit undo if it's not going the way I want it to. So I'm just using the move tool. I kind of positioned it out so that there's a little curve to the leg, and then also kind of buckled his knees out so that they're not just going like straight down, you know. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and save again. Notice how much I'm saving here because Zbrush is one to crash. So A, and you can see I have this going here. A again to get out of that, and I'm just going to draw his feet here. I imagine I'm wearing boots, so I'm not going to model out every single toe, you know. So I'm just going to draw here. This is going to be the ankle area, or the area connecting the ankle to the heel, I should say. So more of the heel area. So I drew it out. Press move. And this technique is just something that takes practice. It's very straightforward, and it's just it's a very, you know, it's a weird system, so it takes a little while to get used to. I remember this took me a minute here to kind of incorporate into my workflow, but I use it all the time now. And once you get used to it, it can just be a really quick way to get your model started. Oops. So this will be his feet. And I'll angle them out just a little bit. Press A to preview how this is going. And I think that's okay as a starting point. And so, yeah, this is kind of what I'll do to start something off with Zspheres. And so I'll just do file save again. And again, I'm just saving it as demo one here. And I'll replace. And so remember that A is the button I've pressed to see what the mesh looks like. But you'll notice that when you press A, you can press A again and it's not a finalized decision. So there's one more step we need to do to make this an editable mesh here that we can sculpt on. And so something I just highly recommend here is just go ahead and, you know, save right now as a version that's got the Z-spheres there. Because once we do this next step, you won't be able to get to the Z-spheres anymore. So just save this as like a version 1. And then once you do this next step, you won't be able to get back to it. So save that as a version 2, you know, just in case something happens and you want to go back to your Z-sphere stage and you don't have to start completely from scratch, right? So press A as an apple to get the wireframe preview. And then all you need to do is just go over to this button right here, which is the Make Polymesh 3D. And once you press Make Polymesh 3D, you see the directional button kind of went away there. And so now, if we draw with a standard brush, it goes right on. And so from here, when I'm working on a project, you'll see that this character is pretty faceted right now. And so you can smooth, and that'll kind of get rid of a lot of it. But it's still there a little bit. But sometimes I just do that, just a little smooth, just as my first step to kind of get that faceting to be a little less distracting here. And we all have different techniques here, and it kind of depends on what I'm working on here. But I've found that, you see, as I sculpt, even using the standard brush tool, the faceting starts to go away once you kind of start adding in those edges there. And so as you work on it, this will go away. Something else I do is I'll use the clay buildup tool and the clay tubes tool when I'm getting started. So under here, you can't see it because I'm working on a laptop and it's kind of gone off screen. But if you press memorize the tools that you like to use the most. And so I'll press C for clay buildup. And then you can't even see it, but CT, you see how there's a 9 in front of some of these and some things like that. So if you press C and then T, that'll be the shortcut for clay tubes. And I think clay buildup is CB. I guess we'll see. CB. Yep, CB is clay buildup. And so I like to use these as I'm just getting started on my mesh. So clay buildup is it's a little more organic. You see how it just goes a pretty gradated there. But the material looks the same. And then clay tubes, if I do this, is CT, T as in Thomas. And when I sculpt, it's more of like a plane that you can build up one at a time. So for a stylized character like this, doing my normal workflow of using clay tubes might not be the best idea, but I don't know. I'm a creature of habit here. So when I build this up, I need to take my Z intensity way down here. Something I like about the clay tubes tool is you can kind of treat it. It builds up the mesh, and you can kind of think about it like the way muscles work. You can just kind of build this up, and I'm not concerning myself with the texture at all here because my plan would be to re-topologize this. And so right now I'm just sculpting. I'm thinking about Rodin, the way he sculpts, and so that method of sculpting is largely, I'm worrying about the form, the form at large here, and I'm not concerned about every little detail that the sculpt is making. And so right now I'm just starting this off by defining the little shoulder area here. And one reason that kind of allows me to think like this is when I smooth it, all that detail is going to go away. Also, my plan for the workflow for this model here is I need to add a face onto this and all this stuff. And so there's some techniques that we'll be showing called Dynamesh and some things like that that'll re-topologize. And eventually I'm going to bring this into Maya. He's looking a little ripped right now. That's not good. Bring this into Maya and use the quad draw tool to re-topologize the whole thing here. So to start things off, for the mouth or something like that, I might use the move tool, which is MV. This is the shortcut there. But again, if you don't want to memorize the shortcut, is somewhere in here. There it is, the move tool right there. And it's like the grab tool in Mudbox. I use the smooth tool to smooth things out. This is a really weird character I'm making. And again, I'm staying in the move tool. Oops. And yeah, so that's just basically how you kind of start to sculpt something out here. And I'll continue to show techniques here. One thing that I should have been doing there is I was working outside of the perspective mode. So when I'm modeling in the, when you're doing this, just make sure to turn on perspective there. You see how I got like a little bit of a surprise there? This guy's a little more bulgy than I imagined because I was working like that. And so just make sure perspective's on, because when you bring this into Maya for rendering, it's going to look more like this. This is more like looking at it through a purely orthographic view. And so just kind of keep that in mind as you're working here. And so I'll continue to show techniques here for how to model in Zbrush. And you can see here, you don't have to get the model perfect during the Zspheres phase, because we can just use the move tool, the clay buildup tool, and just kind of build up this character. And it's just more just to give yourself, a rough basis to start from. So Yep. Until next time.